Organizing an outline is probably the most important topic for the entire class. If you know how to organize the content, you know how to give a speech. The delivery can not be very good, but still, as long as you're able to deliver the content in an organized fashion, your audience will understand the speech. So really what I want you to be able to do with good organizing and outlining skills, it just makes the writing of the speech or even a paper a whole lot easier if you just know what you're going to be able to say. Having that basic outline structure in your head just gives you confidence to go to other situations in which you may not be prepared, but you can speak off the cuff because you just know how to give the speech. And really just know the outlines of the parts of the speech because it is one of the big components of the speeches later on in the semester. So why bother? Well, part of why this organizational structure that I have for you in the outline template that I want you to use for this class is that having those pieces in there allows your audience to understand what you're doing in speech a lot better. As I mentioned, it gives you a little more confidence to know that you are doing what you need to. So if you have a blank line, then that shows that you're missing something and need to put something in there. It also allows you to be a better analytical thinker in that you can digest the content and be able to find what is actually necessary. So you may read a whole article about a topic, but really only need one sentence from it because that is what is necessary to say in the speech. So I'm going to go through the sections of the speech and what I would like you to be able to do and some of the pieces that are listed on the outline and what you should be putting in there. Some of the basic pieces that are going to be consistent across the speeches in the introduction is the attention getting device. A lot of times I abbreviate it as the AGD so I don't have to type it out every time. So the attention getting device, this is just the statement in which you are grabbing our attention. This is something interesting, startling, etc. You should always have some line in which you are connecting to the audience. Why is the topic you are saying relevant to the people to which you are speaking? Your speaker credibility is why are you up there talking right now? What do you have to say about this? And it can be as simple as I've done research on this and the audience hasn't, or you actually have personal experience with this topic. Your thesis we've covered previously, and that is your main sentence. That is the essential point that you want your audience to know. And then the preview statement warns the audience what it is they're about to hear. You let them know how many points and what they may be. So, in just seeing each line in your speech has a role to play. If you can't clearly identify how it connects back to one of the pieces in the outline, then you don't need that line in your speech. Only put in what is necessary. So you really need to be able to emphasize your main points. I'm going to give you an example of what an outline for a body of a speech looks like. So this speech has 3 main points, and each line or label for the main point is a sentence. This is what I want you to know. Some of the pieces in order to give you the thesis to help it make sense. So the main point 1 is 1,500 men each year contract breast cancer. Main point 2, black women who are diagnosed die of the disease more often than white women who are diagnosed. And main point 3 is clinical examination can help detect the problem. And then some subpoints, looking and feeling are 2 parts to breast examination. Detecting the difference between cancerous and non-cancerous irregularities is very important. So all this is about addressing that people need to be aware of the dangers of breast cancer, even if you don't think that you're vulnerable, you are, and that we need to properly screen for it in order to protect vulnerable populations who aren't getting screened. So what kinds of things to do in the main points in the body of the speech? 2 to 3 main points is really all that's needed, and unless you're giving a State of the Union, you don't need more than 2 to 3 main points. You're not speaking for more than 10 minutes at any given time. 3 main points is really all that is necessary. It just becomes too much. Parallelism is useful, and parallelism is where the language you use in each main point is similar. So this many people are affected by this. This kind of person is affected by this. These different people are affected by this. So there's a lot of similar language appearing in each of the main point labels. And each of your main points should be equal in importance. You shouldn't spend 30 seconds on main point 1 and 6 minutes on main point 2. That tells me that main point 1 wasn't important and that you need to just focus on main point 2. So in the body of speech, it should be clearly defined when you are moving between points. And part of that is the content, the structure of the speech, the organization of it. And so transitions and previews. And there should be some sort of argument that's being made for each main point. So each main point in and of itself is an argument you're presenting. This thing is worth knowing. And then you have to give that content to explain why that main point is worth knowing, and eventually how that main point is relevant to the thesis. So everything filters back up to being relevant to the thesis. Previews and reviews feel like you're just repeating yourself a lot, and if it were in a paper, it would feel extremely repetitive and unnecessary. This isn't a paper, you are saying it to us. You say that sentence once, and if I, saw something shiny out of the corner of my eye, I've missed what you said. And so the recaps and the reviews not only give us that reminder of what you said, but they also serve as auditory signals for when we're moving from one point to the next, when we are transitioning in the content of the speech. The conclusion of the speech gives the overall review. So just take the preview of the speech, put it in past tense, and now you have your review statement. And then you remind us of the thesis. So you tell us at the beginning, this is what I want you to know. You provide me with content so that I would know that. And at the end of the speech, so now that we cover those things, now you know this thing. So always remind us what it is that we want to know. And finish with some sort of lasting impression. What do we know? What should we sort of take away from this? What is something that we kind of leave us with that we will remember about the speech? So it really is the so what. So now that I know that, what do I do with it? So a couple things to keep in mind is time management, making sure that you're not trying to fit 10 minutes of content into a 5-minute speech or 5 minutes of content into a 10-minute speech. You really do need to practice it and say it out loud. And so if you think about it like a puzzle, where do these things fit in the outline, then it doesn't feel like such a tedious task to fill it out. And just kind of figuring out how all this needs to be organized, and we'll talk a little about that in a little bit. But when you're outlining, subordination is your friend. If you have something more specific that you want to cover, provide that. Divide the content where it is necessary. If you have a lot of content about topic A and very little about topic B, then split A into 2 separate pieces. Again, the parallelism is important. And what kinds of outlines? A preparation outline is just where you just have sort of a rough sketch of ideas. You're making stuff, you're writing some things down, and just sort of formulating what the idea really is. From there, you need to be able to move that content into that structured outline template that I've provided for you, and on each line there should be a complete sentence. This is the formal sentence outline. This is what you will end up submitting for your speeches, so that you have prepared the content, but you have not written out word for word a speech. There is content to know, and you've thought through what is happening at each stage, but there's still sort of content that you fill in between those. A lot of times a keyword speech is what outline is what you will then use when you give the speech. So you work up to the formal sentence outline, and then you bring it back down to some keywords to help keep you on track as the kind of things that you need to cover. And just some tips for concluding the speech. You can end with some quotation. If there's some speaker who's given something eloquent, you can say, and so I leave you with the words of so-and-so who said, ta-da. Sometimes you can ask a rhetorical question, so now that we know this, what are you going to do with it? You can always go with the story route, and a story is something that is useful you can do with your attention-getting device, and you can sort of wrap up the story in your conclusion, or just some sort of striking statement that was something that is, an interesting fact about the topic, but didn't fit anywhere else in the speech. And it is really just where you do in the conclusion, you review the speech. So it is where you kind of tie it all together and what do we need to know about it, and give us that reminder of the thesis and those main points. It also is useful as sort of a warning for the audience that the speech is about to be over. It's nice to know when a speech is going to end, and so giving that review statement in the thesis and lasting impression really allows us to know that, okay, you're done talking. So it's allow us to tell us what you expect from us, what are we supposed to do with the information. It all refers back to some part of the introduction. So now that you know, all right, I told you why this information is relevant to you, now you know this information, and now what will you do with it? And so if you just have that memorable conclusion, it will make them remember at least something about the speech, even if it wasn't, the thesis in its entirety, but something for them to walk away with.